Hello, welcome to Midwife Monday. I got a fancy background today. We'll see how this works. I think I can change it. I think I can change the color as the weeks go on. But for today, it is green. And thanks to Jason for setting this all up so fancy today. I do have the first cup of tea of the season. It is finally that time, almost, sort of, kind of here in Kentucky. Yeah, and a mic too. I did have the mic the other week, and it looks a little funny, but it really does help the sound quality, especially if you're watching the replay, I think. So, just trying to be pro here, doing the best I can. Hello. Hello, Jill and Megan and Haley and Dahlia. So nice to see you all. So, maybe you want to grab your own cup of tea here or coffee or whatever you've got. Mine is so hot that I'm going to hold it carefully. I've got my fancy breech mug here. If you remember me showing this off last year or something in Sedona, Sam is here. Ooh, drinking nettles. I am drinking Tulsi. I like Tulsi a lot lately. I think I said that. So, whoops. Don't want to have any accidents here with a hot cup of tea and a computer. So I will give it a little rest there while we pick a card. We are picking a card. Oh, I want to show you all, my loyal Midwife Monday friends, a new deck. Let's see. We're going to get it. This is such a fun deck. It is so wacky and so silly and so amusing, and I am totally loving it. Hello, Danielle and Evan. So I just got this deck last week, and it truly is magical, as I think most decks have the potential to be, especially when we infuse them with our own energy and kind of own them, in the best way, kind of like a pet, like a puppy, telling the deck who you are and just being open to the messages seem to make them really effective. So this one is no different than my other tarot deck in that it is very special and magical. And the couple cards I've pulled since I got it last week have been really, really right on, like really informative and exactly what I was thinking and feeling, like exactly. So don't mind me simultaneously trying to read comments and say hello to people while also looking in the fancy camera that we've got rigged up here. So, hello, Brandy, Jacqueline. If you're new here, it's so nice to know that you're here. Even if you're not new, it's very nice to know you're here. It's nice to know where you're watching from. And you can beat me to it. You can let me know any questions or topics for the day. I don't ever know where this is going. So I really do rely on all of you to suggest a thing. And then that becomes what we talk about. And that becomes the focus, which is really fun. I never know what it is. Zara, Michelle, yay. So many familiar and new faces today. Oh, well, how is everyone feeling? How is everyone feeling on this beautiful Monday? I don't know how it's the end of October, Evan. I don't know. In some ways, it's gone so fast since the summer when we moved here. And in other ways, it feels like we still are just so brand new. So I'm feeling all of that today. Amber. Hello. Feeling really blessed, of course, to be in this place for, I'm discovering every day, maybe reasons why or not, just experiencing it more, meeting more people, getting connected with the community in general. And that's really feeling good. That's why I came here. That's why I think we came here. So it's nice to see it happening as it needs to happen. Molly, yay. Ooh, yeah. Jill, Scorpio, huh? Scorpio energy, we have 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 Scorpio suns in our home, and more if you count animals. Believe it or not, we do know some of the dogs' birthdays. So we have at least 1 dog that's a Scorpio, and she is such a Scorpio. She is the mother protector of all the children, super sensitive, emotional. And then we have Tallulah, whose birthday is this Friday. She will be 15. And then we have Rumi, of course, who will be 1 in November, which is crazy. And then a week after that, we have Amelia, who will be 19. So lots of Scorpio energy in our home. I'm a Cancer sun, so we've got lots of female, well, not Rumi, but lots of emotion. So that is what it is. But yes, Scorpio season. Inma, how nice to see you. Yeah, thank you. I'll show you the deck again for people that are just hopping on and getting used to this camera. So, Curious Creatures by Chris Ann. I have another one of her decks called the Light Seers Tarot, and that is not with me today, but I have used it before on Midwife Monday, and I really, really love it. It's just as beautiful. And like I was sharing, this one is really quirky and funny and silly. And when I ordered it, I really thought it would be fun for the kids. Specifically, my one daughter, Ever, who's 7, she likes learning witchy stuff. She likes tarot, she likes cards, but they're not hers. I just thought they'd be fun to explore together. So we may do that, but I actually like them a whole lot more than I thought. I'm really enjoying them because you have like this double reading here with animals and the tarot. So an animal tarot deck, kind of, sort of. And then the book has been really insightful. Lots of Scorpios here. How fun. And yeah, thank you. This mug is magical. I'll have to show you again. It's a breach. Let's see. Someone on Instagram made this. I think it's Black Banjo Arts. And if I'm not mistaken, oh dear, every now and then she has a few available and it's super competitive to get one. So I did get one. And I actually got Margot one and I got Nathan one. So we have a trio of really cool mugs. Okay, let's choose a card. Everybody can get themselves where they need to be, kind of grounded. Hopefully, just putting your feet on the ground if you can. I'm not outside today, obviously. Also, it's kind of rainy. Kind of missing that though. I didn't get out this morning for a walk like I normally do. So I just got out to let my chickens out. And they were already out. They got out on their own this morning. Don't ask. So finding a moment of peace and calm, perhaps. And asking this fun new deck what our message is. What our message is for today. 9 of Swords. So I'll show you. It's like a funny kind of card. 9 of Swords. Look, the camera is going to nicely zoom in on that. Nicely covering up my face, which is great. Look at this owl. So Swords is air, the element air, and all that comes with it. 9. 9's a pretty cool magical number. I think there's a feather there on the bed. And I don't know about you. She looks like kind of worried or something. I have to look at it myself. Yeah, magical feather. There's a lamp on. These are much harder to intuit. So I'm not going to show off for you today and be able to do that. I really have no idea what this one means. maybe some elements of like trusting amongst worry or guidance. I don't know. I'm going to consult the book because I'm still learning these and they're not as easy to like intuitively read as the other deck that I have. Nine of Swords. Ooh, nightmares, anxiety or depression, insomnia, worries, negative thoughts, fears, a reminder to actively engage in self care, a chance to begin freeing yourself from negative patterns of thinking. So, the little owl, the one that I said looks scared, she is indeed afraid of the dark. So, how dark the night can be, and yet all the best hunting happens under the stars. All her intuitions and instincts, all the beautiful downloads and precious exchanges with spirit are being obscured by her own fears and worries about the future. It's time to find the power of your wings and trust in more than just the voice of a distraught or fretful mind. It's time to fall into peace by befriending any nightmares or anxieties that are keeping you unrested and unfulfilled. Look at them head on in order to see that they are the ego's efforts to keep you safe, a mechanism of protective messages wrapped in metaphor. The emphatic voices of the night are meant to help you heal, so hear them and ask them what they want to teach you. But know that you are guided and protected and infinitely loved by the universe. So the barn owl is the totem for this card. So specifically with this card, what are you afraid of? Name it, and then watch that fear float up into the clouds and dissipate. Consciously program your mind by bringing comforting thoughts and relaxing imagery into your mind's eye as you fall asleep. What do you desire? And what positive emotions can you pull into your awareness? So that's the barn owl and the Nine of Swords message for us today. Yeah, it is pretty intense. I don't know what that's about. Maybe you all have some inkling or story. I did have some very intense dreams last night, and I don't think they're probably worth sharing, but there was a very strong theme of anger throughout the dream. And this has been something that has been surfacing for me for a couple of weeks now, both in the dream space and in real life, but kind of like alternately, if that makes sense. So, like, these dreams are really intense, filled with anger. And then I wake up and I think, like, am I angry? I don't feel angry about that thing or that person as much as I did in my dream. But then anger is definitely also coming up in my real life, unrelated to the dream. So something is going on. I am in some kind of process right now around fire and anger. So I don't know. I don't know if that's meant for me, but yeah, it was a crazy bunch of dreams that were really detailed. They were kind of birth related, but again, the strong element of being angry was there. So I am looking into this. I am not quite sure why this is coming up and what's being uncovered. But I'm trusting it's all for the good. It's all for good. And there are things that need to be shed. And this is the season to do it. So I don't know. That card was for you, Dahlia. Well, see, it was probably for me too. It's a good one. It is intense though. Uh, Fears and really considering like the negative energy and talk that we all mostly, maybe not all of us, but many of us at many times have that voice going on. And it really does influence what is happening in your life. I was sharing on my podcast yesterday, for those of you that heard it, my vision quest, right? No pun intended, my literal vision quest with this idea of vision and seeing, and how much my mood, how much my emotions influence what and how clearly I am able to see. So yesterday was really on the positive side. I felt like after meditation, especially, I was able to see much more clearly. And then that felt good, right? So, like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know. And then today, it was just a different kind of day, woke up and kids were screaming from the moment we got up and having to kind of rush here after Rumi had kind of choked on something and just was not as relaxed or calm, and then therefore the emotions shape that kind of vision. So it's a very interesting thing, I think, to just sit with, even if you don't quite have it figured out, which I do not. Hmm. Yeah, you're right, Jill. I mean, there is just overall anger in lots of places, and I'm sure it's useful. So when I had a couple of anger experiences this past week, I was just kind of like looking for resources and, walking along on a hike listening to podcasts. And I found this one podcast that was a walking meditation on anger. And it was okay. I mean, it was okay. It gave me something to kind of focus on and questions to ask. And ultimately, I think, helpful acknowledgement that anger is not bad. It's not bad or good. It just is. And it's really the way we respond to it and what we do with it. And if we can uncover the message under that, then it's for our own growth. And if we don't do that, or we go into like violence or suffering around it, then it does feel like, what's the point? So, what's under there, I guess, is what I've been kind of feeling and thinking around what is under the anger. And usually, I think for many people, right, it's sadness or despair or some kind of fear. And you just keep like layering down, right, until you hit the answer. What is this really about? So many ways, so many things, so much going on in the world right now and in each of our lives. But the anger must be appropriate in the way that it's showing up for us, I think. For me, it was last week around the full moon, which was in Aries, which is total fire. So, without even knowing that, like I didn't plan that. I didn't plan to start uncovering some anger themes around the full moon, but that's how it worked out. And then it was acknowledgement of like, oh yeah, that's the time. And now kind of similar. Scorpio is in fire, but intense in its own way. And also just the time of year. The time of year is really revealing. Like we're going into the darkness, and this is what's in the darkness. This is what's in the shadow that we all have, these emotions that are not as fun to talk about and not as fun to experience or express, but they're definitely there. So I think it's all good work. Uh, shuffling the anger around our bodies in the ways that we need to, holding space for ourselves, having other friends and such hold space, and just getting time alone. So that card for me was definitely a reminder that, self-care is very important when you are processing that kind of thing. And for me it was like a result also of not making that time for myself. So kind of feeling angry and then having it really boil over because I hadn't gotten any time alone. So, yeah, lessons learned. Hard to get time alone sometimes. Yeah, I'm reading some of the. Yeah, Evan has some questions about placentas and cords. And I don't have a whole lot to say, to be honest. I think placentas are fascinating, and I always feel like there's so much for me to learn every time I see one, because I feel like most of the things we do see are variations of normal. And whether that's cord insertions or just an unusual shape or, something like that. Placentas are very unique. They are very, very unique. So, there are similarities, of course, as well, but then there are things that kind of stick out. And I always say to people, who knows? Like, you could put it into Google, but mysterious ways with growing another organ that feeds a baby. I think they definitely have a personality of their own. I think placentas have a story of their own. And so, if you're the one whose placenta it is, that's an opportunity to ask that, right? Ask the story and hear what comes, and how this organ supported your baby and what that felt like, because it really is such a cool relationship if you think, right, of the baby and the placenta, how they are partners, right? They are like siblings almost. And there's so much exchanged and expressed between them that we would never know about. And same goes for us, I suppose. When we were born, we had a placenta. Like, that is definitely a thing that all of us had. We were all born and we all had placentas. So, I wonder what that was. I wonder what that conversation was like, and what happened to that. I have no idea what happened to my placenta as a baby. Probably got thrown in the trash. Yeah, last week was very intense, for sure. I know, it's one of those weeks that you think, like, next week has got to be calmer or more relaxed, and I don't know. I don't know so far. It's only Monday. What birth questions or topics do people have today? We could always pick another card if that feels appropriate. Trying to think if I have anything. I always have like a sort of idea before we start, and then sometimes I forget. I forget it all. Topics, questions, themes. What other themes are there? Yeah, placentas. So cool. I was talking just this morning with someone about placenta options. So that's a fair enough topic, at least for a moment. But just knowing that we have options if we're going to birth soon, I think is helpful. Many people don't know what the options are, from swallowing the placenta, pieces of the placenta raw, like pills, to dehydration, to in smoothies, to making a tincture, to burying it, to doing nothing, to making placenta prints. So there's all kinds of ways that this can be honored, and our gratitude and blessings can be expressed, because the baby cannot survive without this. And in rare cases where placentas aren't doing well or aren't allowing adequate circulation, then the babies don't do well. They may not grow, or worse. So the baby is completely dependent on this organ. And so a way to express your gratitude, I think, is really appropriate if you feel like it. So with my own placentas, I have, yes, buried them. My last one, roomies, I did bury with my dear friend Christina in Arizona on her property. And that felt really sacred for a lot of reasons. We have a podcast on that out there. I have swallowed a couple of them whole, in pieces, but the whole thing over time. So over a couple of weeks, I have made smoothies. I sadly have thrown some out just before I was really aware of this kind of intention around it. I have made placenta prints. I think my fourth baby has the best I could do at the time, at least, on a piece of paper somewhere. and that's almost 13 years old, so it looks a little funny. I think the recommendation with making a placenta print is to get some kind of artistic sort of paper, right? Like watercolor paper, for example, something that will absorb the blood as paint. And so you take the fetal side, which is the baby side. So that's the side with all of the vessels. It's really beautiful. It looks like the tree of life. And the way I know to do it is to kind of coat it with blood, from the placenta bowl, maybe from the other side of the placenta, and you just make like a giant print, a giant stamp. There might be more artistic ways to do that if you're a visual artist, but I'm not. So that's how I've done it in the past. If you've ever seen one and they are cool, you can also utilize the umbilical cord kind of like coming down from the print. But in its best form, in its best rendition, a placenta print is that beautiful tree of life. And that's what it looks like. Nobody would guess it was a placenta. It really, really can be a nice way to remember because placentas don't last forever. Even if you freeze them, at some point, you'll probably get it out, or get rid of it. Making a tincture, like a homeopathic tincture, is something some people do. And then just not knowing what you want to do is totally fine. So I like to talk about the options in the prenatal time so people know what they are. But I almost always say, you will know. You will know if you want it. You will know if you don't want it. I can think of so many women that in the pregnancy said, no, I'm not going to want to ingest that. That sounds gross. I don't think I'm going to want that. Okay, cool. And then after birth, they end up doing it because they want it, or maybe they have some excess bleeding and, it's my idea, but they're very willing and it feels really good in their bodies. So I guess we just don't know sometimes how we will utilize this sacred organ, if we will, or if we won't, or if we'll just honor it in some other ways. Also, along with that is just separating the baby from the placenta, separating the cord in one way or another, and thinking about like how special that is to you and your baby in your family. And also having ceremony, having intention around that if it feels right. So many people will burn the cord. I've never done that personally with my own babies, but I've had plenty of clients that burn the cord, and that can be really fun. It actually can be really funny too. Like it doesn't always totally create like a Kodak moment. Some cords. Oh, it's 3:33. I say that pretty much every week. Um, yeah, sometimes the cords kind of like fizzle and snap and burst into flames, depending on how dried out they are. So it can be kind of a funny experience as well. And some people just tie the cord and cut it. Some people clamp the cord and cut it. There's all kinds of variations, but I really enjoy just holding space for whatever it is that the family wants to do because it's not rocket science. That's what I say to people. I think from the movies, from, sitcoms and such, maybe. I don't even know where it comes from. Like this obsession around cutting the cord, like as if it's such a big deal. And it is. It is a big deal, but not in the way it's portrayed. So to me, it's a big deal of separating the baby from the placenta, its sibling, but the actual cutting is not such a big deal. And anybody can do it. And literally a 4-year-old could do it if they're shown how. So it's not hard and there's no rush. I say that at almost every single birth, there is no rush. I'm not going to ask you when you want to do it. You just say. And if you don't say, I'll leave the scissors with you and you can do it when you want. It's not hard. And you don't need a midwife or anyone there to do it. Yeah, the cord burning can be comical for sure. Yeah, I know. I mean, that's why I'm laughing because I've totally seen it. And that's where it's like, do what you want. Totally. I support whatever you want to do. Cord burning, this beautiful box, people buy these organic candles. I mean, this is what I've seen. And then, yeah, it's like funny, and it takes a super long time if the cord isn't dried out enough, and, you've got a baby that wants to nurse and wax is dripping everywhere. It's pretty funny. It can be pretty funny. Yeah, lots of fun placenta comments. Right, and as I said already, my last one, roomies, and actually coves, I had cove and roomie, and I didn't feel the call to ingest their placenta at all. I just didn't. In fact, with cove, I did swallow a couple of pieces in the immediate postpartum, and I got an immediate headache. Like it just wasn't something my body wanted to take back. So I definitely think that should be honored, that should be respected. No shame in that. I know, there's some people that are like really hardcore into whatever, whether it's dehydrating or placenta preparation. That's great. That's really great, but I don't think we all have to do it. I don't think we were meant to do it. And there's a lot of mystery, right? I don't understand why. I don't understand why someone would and this person wouldn't, and why for me with multiple children, some of them I did and some of them I didn't. So the respect has been there mostly, other than I said, like, I think it was my third placenta that I really did just throw out, which I do feel sad about. And she'll be 15 in a couple of days, as I said. So I don't know. But I was a midwifery student there at that point, and yeah, I think it was just sort of like business, birth was a little it was along my lines of learning at the time. So I was a student and everything was just kind of studenty, not really super connected. It was just like, all right, next. Yeah, I do have some clamps. I do, but I really hate those big plastic ones. I'm sure you all know what I mean. But they're cheap, they're pretty easy, and so I do have those, and if somebody wants one, then by all means. But usually, if somebody ends up doing that early, like, soon after the birth, which again, I'm not getting involved in that, um, but if they do that, then by the time I leave a couple hours later, we can take the clamp off before I even leave, because you do need to kind of, like, slice it off, unless you're gonna wait for the cord, excuse me, to fall off, which is going to take a little while. So I hate leaving those plastic clamps on. They're really just clunky and scratchy, and, I wouldn't want one on my own baby. So, yes, but the alternative, of course, is just tying off the cord with some pretty thread or a cord tie, and that seems to heal really nicely. It just kinda stays on there while the cord shrivels up. When I was a student, I never saw anyone clamp or tie a cord. I know this sounds crazy, but we would probably stay at the births, 4 hours or so, which I don't always stay that long, to be honest, if everybody is great. 4 hours is a long time, especially if people want to get rest. But we did when I was a student. So if we stayed 4 hours, we would wait until we were about to leave, and then we would just have the parents cut it. We never clamped it. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it because that was just what I was taught. And now I think, wow, that's interesting. Like, I'm glad nothing weird happened, but it never did. At that point, the vessels were all sealed, and sure, a little drop would drip out, a little drop of blood, but nothing catastrophic ever happened. So, that's an option. And, for me, if someone doesn't want to clamp it or tie it, I'm willing to do that if they are. But also, you can just take a hemostat, so like a tweezery tool, and just compress the cord for like a minute or two. And that will probably give you more assurance with the fact that the vessels are sealed before you just cut, right below that. So it's also weird, isn't it, that we grow these things out of our belly buttons when we're babies and we have to sever them somehow? Very strange. Very, very strange. Yeah, I find that most of the clients I work with like the string. I have a whole like rack of string that's all kinds of pretty colors. And no, it's not like sterile. I mean, it's clean, it's in my bag, but if someone feels they need something sterile, then I guess they should sterilize it or use a sterile clamp. I've never been worried about that or, thought that was a problem even on my own babies. The cord scissors are usually sterilized, but they're out and about with the other birth supplies. So I've never worried about things getting in there in a way. I've never heard of that actually happening. Maybe if you cut it with something that's like really dirty, but I've not had anything weird happen. I have not done a full lotus birth, or actually any kind of, not even like a partial lotus. The story, though, is that I did have one planned with my fourth baby, and I even had this beautiful bag sewn. In fact, just today I was talking about it with someone, and I was trying to remember where this bag went to. I don't think I still have it, but it was this really beautiful print I had found at a craft store, and a friend kind of sewed it into a circle and she put a little drawstring on the bag, and that was the placenta bag that was supposed to be for his placenta. Well, if you don't know the story, if you do know the story, yeah, it's in our book, Indie Birth, A Story of Radical Birth Love, but Rune Winter's birth story. So he was my fourth, and he was the one that came out not breathing in the way that the midwife we had thought he should. And so, without even asking my permission, she cut his cord, which of course is not smart. It's not smart. And it was hasty and not okay to do that without asking us. But she thought she was doing the best she could, I'm sure, for helping to resuscitate him. But we all know now, and I've experienced it several times, that you certainly can and should resuscitate a baby still attached to the placenta. You should not go cutting cords. Although I did learn after the fact that that does raise the baby's blood pressure. So I don't know that that would be a great reason because you're cutting off the blood supply, but that is physiologically what happens. So funny, funny, my plans for a lotus birth in one clip of a scissor were gone. So never had one. And honestly, I didn't really want one after that. I felt a little like I would be jinxing myself or something, which is sort of silly, but it's never been something I've really been passionate about. I mean, I like placentas. I love placentas. I think again, we could have more respect for them and whatever kind of ceremony or whatever feels good to us, but I didn't necessarily want to experience that for whatever reason. And I certainly have supported people in that in a lotus birth, and then more commonly people that think they want a lotus birth and then wind up doing what I call a partial lotus birth. I don't even know if that's a thing. Is that a thing? Where they cut it after a couple of days, so it hasn't severed on its own, but they kind of hit the wall. They're kind of done, having a baby attached to a thing, and the cord gets all stiff and hard and dried out, and they just feel like, oh, this isn't the natural end to this process. Right, 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 right. Oh, homeschooling. Hmm. Yeah, that's a drastic change of topic, right? From placentas and cords to homeschooling. I don't know if I have a lot to share about homeschooling. I never thought my kids would go to school. So maybe I'm different in that way. I'm not sure how many of you have felt that way. I just knew, and I was just saying this actually, I forgot to which one of my kids, but Amelia is going to be 19. And so maybe it was that. I was reflecting on how is she going to be 19? Like I remember so well the day she was born. I remember pushing her out, and she was so tiny and so cute. But it was that long ago that I decided I was never going to send my kids to school, that I didn't understand why people would have children if they sent them away. That's me. because I wanted my kids with me. I didn't want someone else to be teaching them or how I see it. I didn't want someone else to be raising them because that's essentially what I feel like happens. I mean, I'm someone that went to school, my whole life. And my kids are horrified at how that sounds. They laugh. They can't believe that kids get sent away for 8 hours a day. And then on top of it, then you get home from school, or at least I did. And, there's a couple hours right before bed. So my kids listen very intently to this story that many people are living, most people are living. And, that's totally fine if that works for them. But it was just a gut instinct that long ago that I didn't want to send my kids off. And let's see, where did that come from? I worked with kids a little bit when I was before I had children. And honestly, I wasn't a fan. I love my children. I am not a fan of working with kids. It's not my jam. It's not my thing. I don't necessarily think it's fun. So babysitting, it's okay. But more specifically, I worked at a Hebrew school in New York City, and again, it was just like, why am I watching other people's kids? Like, especially in a group, they weren't well behaved. It was like disciplinary. And sure, there were moments of fun, but again, it just wasn't my passion. So that group of children. And then, funny enough, I also worked at a Sunday school. So I had this funny experience, and I'm not religious. So it didn't matter either way, but just this funny experience of working at a Christian church with Sunday school. And then during the week, I worked at this Hebrew school that was like very conservative, Lower East Side, New York City. So kind of like night and day, but also a lot of similarities. So again, just groups of children learning that kind of had to be like corralled and disciplined. And no way. I'm sure a lot of them were very nice children. In fact, it's funny to think that those kids are, probably 25 now. They're not kids anymore. But in a group, it just was like, no. And I saw how they behaved and how they were, just kind of always trying to do the opposite of what was intended for them with whatever education we were providing. And I think that was part of my influence of just never wanting my kids to be in a situation like that because I wasn't in control of it. That's the honest truth. Like, I have always wanted to be in control of what their experience of the world is as young children. I know that we can't always control that. And I'm very much experiencing that now, right? As they get older, yeah, then they experience the world in the ways that we do. But as young kids, I think that's what I have seen as my job of educating, of schooling, is just to infuse my version of the world into them. And then they take that when they get older, and hopefully it will serve them, hopefully it will. So that's what I chose to do. Jason and I both, he has always been great. He has always been 500% on board. And he's the one that's done a lot more of the research into John Taylor Gatto and, this idea that kids probably learn better when it's organic and natural and not forced on them to learn a thing. So that's been the way we school. We don't make them learn anything. There are things that are highly suggested. And I think you reach a point with your own children in your communication with them where it becomes obvious that they will learn to read. They will learn basic math, not because you said, not because today's the day to do that, but because they can't move forward in life without that. And that has been really cool and rewarding to see because I think people don't understand that. Have friends or acquaintances that only have younger children right now, and they'll say, well, how is my kid going to learn how to read? In school, they learn how to read at age 6. Well, how do I make that happen? And the answer, in my opinion, is that you don't. You don't make it happen. You wait until that kid is like, "Oh man, reading would really be fun," or "Reading would really allow me to know what's happening right now." And then they wanna do it. And who cares if they're 6? They're probably not gonna be 6, is what I found. They're gonna be 7, 8, or 9, or, maybe 10. I don't know. But our kids have all taught themselves how to read essentially with a little bit of help, some of them, on their own timetable when they just couldn't stand it anymore. And, my 7-year-old is at that point. She really wants to learn how to read, but she gets very frustrated with learning it. So she will want me to help, but then she doesn't want me to help. So she's not ready yet, in my opinion. But she is getting more intense around wanting to know what's going on. So her brothers and sisters can read things, she wants to be able to read whatever it is, and that'll be her motivation. So there's no need to force them. And if there's something a person doesn't want to learn, maybe there's a good reason for it. Like, why were we forced to learn anything? Right? I loved school though, like full disclaimer, full transparency. I loved school when I was a kid and I was really good at it. But I don't know that that's served me in a way, because then you have that whole mentality of perfection and looking for other people's approval and all of the stuff that I wanted to spare my children. I wanted to keep them intact, their personalities intact, their willingness and their drive to learn intact, so that they could learn whatever they wanted. Yeah, I mean, I know this is not everybody's experience, and I don't think it has to be. I think we are all different, and I think we are going to parent differently and all of that. So, I I totally respect that, and have friends that don't homeschool, that their kids go to school and that works well for them. I will say I feel like there's a distinct difference though, and you could argue that it's positive or negative or whatever, but a distinct difference between children that have been formally schooled and those that haven't. And I think in the case of my kids, the feedback that we've gotten, just people around town, is that they're really communicative, they're really expressive, they know how to talk to adults, they're not afraid to ask questions, they're not afraid to be wrong because they haven't really gotten ridiculed or penalized for being wrong or asking stupid questions. So it's a different way of working with the world, and that has felt mostly good. I would say that there definitely are things that people worry about that I have also worried about. Just the normal, like, well, what if they don't know this? They don't have this knowledge base. Like, will they miss out, or will they look stupid? And I have just come to peace with that. I think there are a million things in the world I'll never know, a million things that I will just never even know exist. So you just accept that, and they will learn what they want to learn. And if anyone ridicules them, well, it's probably someone in the school system that already has it in their mind that whatever, fourth graders should know X, right? So they already have this standard that they've made up, and that's fine. I don't know what that really is for outside of the system, though, because as long as you can read and, uh, you can work with the money system really and tell time, like, isn't it more important to be a human that can talk to other humans and that can be creative? I think it is. And so it's been fun to see my older kids so far find their own passions and figure it out. So Amelia is a photographer. Many of you know that. She is a full-time photographer at the age of 18, and this began probably year and a half ago, where she was hired by actually a former client of mine who runs a photography business. And this woman, she herself went to college for photography, spent a lot of money learning the right way to take a photograph. And she's excellent. But Amelia is also excellent, and she has never had formal instruction. It is completely natural. And, along the way, Um, Jason and I, by the way, are professional musicians, or we were. Many of you know that. So believe me, we know spending money to get formal education. We do. So I think it was our own insecurities along the way, right? Even with Amelia, like, hey, like, do you want to take a photography course? There are plenty of books written about how to take pictures and all these online courses where you can learn from people. And she always was like, no. And she's a kid. So it wasn't like from this arrogant place of like, oh, I know everything. She just had inside what she needed to progress. And I know she's had questions and, technique kind of stuff, and she has a mentor for that. So it's been a really beautiful process to watch and to regain my trust in, since that wasn't the way it was when I was a kid. That wasn't the way I was educated. I was taught you had to learn, from someone and do it their way. And even in music, I mean, many, many years of music education, and we were still being taught to play it like this, right? There wasn't a lot of room for like artistic expression in music, which sounds funny, but that's the way classical music is. If you really made it your own, it wouldn't sound like the next person. And the goal is to keep it all homogenous. So it's a really interesting topic, especially when you get into like arts and stuff. But she's doing great with that. And then our second son, or our second child, he's our first son. He does music. Funny enough, he does like computer music. Never had a music lesson a day in his life. I don't think reads music the way I was taught to. It's a whole other system. So allowing them that freedom has helped us trust more that what we're holding space for is the best thing that we know how at this moment. So I'm going to read some of the comments. Yeah, I think Danielle, to just speak to like the range of normal, I think that's again something that all, maybe not all, like many of us that homeschool think about, because again, the standard is already set and you feel weird if you're outside. And even if you're using a homeschool curriculum, often it's still structured the same way, right? So I remember we bought a bunch of versions of Oak Meadow a couple of years ago, which is a Waldorf homeschool curriculum. And it was so much like school that we just stopped doing it. It assumed so much about the year before and linear learning, and I think linear learning is not the way that I like to do it even on my own. And those of you in midwifery school, it's like a similar vibe, I hope and I think, with the school, just like, here it is, like, here's all the stuff, you figure out how you want to do that, you figure out how you want to structure that and get the most out of it that you can, rather than micromanaging someone's learning experience. I do not have any kind of routine with schooling. So, here, you heard it. You heard it right here. We tried a curriculum a couple of years ago. That's the one I just mentioned, Oak Meadow. And we did have, I want to say, like 2 or 3 times a week for 2 or 3 hours that we had school time. And it was kind of fun, and I think some of my kids would like if we went back to that. So, I don't know, maybe we will, or maybe we would just do one day a week. Some of them liked the structure of sort of being told that this was the time to do this thing, but it also was really crazy. I have 10 kids and they're not all doing that, but let's say 6 of them were. Whew, it was like a lot to be like bouncing back and forth between kids, and I need help with this and I need that, and trying to take the little ones outside to do a nature hunt. It was like, why are we doing this to ourselves? I mean, we're home. We're home every day. We don't need to do it like school does it to get it done. So I think just for me, like relaxing into that and being more spontaneous. Yes, I think there are kids that do thrive on routine more. So, for example, we do baking day every Tuesday. So it's really ever. She's 7. It's mostly her. But we have a baking day every Tuesday, and that feels really good. And she can be creative and she's learning how to measure and do all the things, right? It's such a sneaky way of learning. She can do all the things, but it's within this fun structure of baking day. So coming up with those ideas, um, that's fun to me. I want it to be fun too. I don't want to be stressed out about it. I don't want to be like, oh gosh, it's school time. Let's make ourselves do this. Every opportunity that there is to learn is good. And it's not all linear. It's so much like pregnancy and birth. So, on that note, I must go on to my next appointment here. But thanks for the fun chat about homeschool. We should definitely do that again. And I'm sort of catching up, but I guess I'll read them later. All right, everybody, have a beautiful week. And I will see you back here next Monday with who knows what color behind me. I don't know. All right, bye.